Welcome to Align and Grind, the podcast where business strategy meets astrology.
And where we put the woo in the work.
I'm Karen, a holistic business coach, helping soul-led entrepreneurs build sustainable success without burnout or the BS.
And I'm Heather, a spiritual life guide, intuitive astrologer, and energy alchemist, here to help you align with your soul path.
Each week, we'll blend grounded strategy with cosmic insight, giving you the tools to grow your business your way. This is Align and Grind.
Let's do it the soul-led way. So Venus, the ruling planet of Taurus, it was in a long retrograde. So it was in Aries, it retrograded back through Aries to Pisces, and then it went direct. I forget when, but it went direct. And now it's been moving forward through Pisces, and now it's back into Aries as of today. So during this retrograde and shadow period, it was a time to reflect on our worth and our value and our sense of self and what lights us up and how we connect to other people and really what we want and what we value and also what we want to create. So this is a perfect time for business owners to look at what showed up for them during that time, because there's a theme. And I'm sure if you think of your life, there's something that showed up there where now we're moving forward. And this Aries energy is bold and confident, independent, courageous. So she's going to go after what she wants and integrate all of these lessons that she learned. So while Venus was in Pisces, it met up with Saturn. And Saturn is rules, regulations, and structure. And then the Saturn lessons that we learn bring rewards. So we're taking that. And now, as Venus is in Aries, it's going to be in a few days meeting up with Neptune. And Neptune is our dreams. And, it kind of brings this manifestation forward. So there's so much potential in this. And it's forward action now. So we're going to really start picking up the pace. Okay, now I know what I want. Now I know who needs to be who supports me, how I want to show up, how I want to shine. And we're taking more confidence and more of I know who I am. I know what my business is, and I know how I want to bring it into existence. And now we can actively create those dreams. Right. So it's exciting. And so this is a perfect time for us to talk about these second house Taurus themes of our worth and our value, because we really can't create and make money and make these business moves. And maybe some people that are watching are thinking about launching a business or kind of stuck in their business or not really making forward progress. And I think sometimes we have to go back to the basics, which are how we feel about ourselves and how we show up and how worthy we feel to be offering what we do and doing what we do.
Yeah. So it's interesting because, and I know we'll get into a couple of different resources and books and stuff, but I actually just recorded another podcast about change. And so one of the things, that I think about when change is we actually are resistant to change. But we have to recognize when is change coming. And this is, I think, when we think of, kind of that, the universal, the energy piece, right? Like that restlessness, or we're just feeling a disconnection, or are we daydreaming, right? Or we get super exhausted where we're we put all this energy out and now we're having to sit back. It's oh yeah, okay. So as you're talking, it's we need to be able to, as small business owners, recognize what's impacting us and when, and that there's a reason we're feeling what we're feeling.
It is. It's so validating because, the astrology is just energy and frequency, but it plays a part inside of us. We're part of this whole system. It's not anything doing something to us. Everything is working through us, and it's here to help us evolve. So, right. Yeah. And then the Saturn lessons are, things that are of value are going to take time. So it's a great time for us to look at what we have manifested And
Mhm.
that hasn't manifested yet. And is it something that's going to take more time and structure to bring into existence? Or is it something that doesn't align with what we want anymore? Is it not really, adding that value? Or is it something we thought we were supposed to want, but it doesn't really line up with like what we want, how we want to create?
Right.
Does it
And
feel?
I think people think as change as this negative, that something's gone wrong.
I think you
When,
think that
right?
because you have so much fixed energy. I love change. But I also know like when I get stagnant and I have where things
Yeah,
have been like flowing, that gets me like frustrated. I focus my energy on it and then things still don't change.
right. Yeah.
You know? But it's
Yeah. Well, because it's interesting because like some of the language is like change isn't negative. It doesn't mean we've done something wrong because we've got to shift or we have to change. It just means that we're actually outgrowing where we are currently, like what this current chapter is,
And don't
right?
you feel that sometimes when you're uncomfortable in that place and it's like it's pushing you because that's
Yes,
not where your soul wants you to go. If
right,
we're aligned on a soul level with our business and bringing this into the world, it's like, okay, maybe I'm hitting this brick wall for a reason. I'm being redirected. It's,
yes,
kind of like we might feel like certain things are rejection, but we're doing the same thing over and over again when really we aren't seeing the big picture.
right. Yeah, yeah. And we have to be open to be able to see the signs
Mhm.
and and not be so resistant to the change. And I
Yes.
know that's easier said than done as far as like change is hard, right? I mean, it's not easy, it can be messy, but if we shift the perspective of what's coming isn't necessarily that it's like this wall we're hitting,
Mhm.
but we're actually it's a doorway. If we can just see it as a doorway, then maybe the other side, just one small action, one more little step, and but it's honoring that we're here
Yeah.
and then going through it, right? And so when we're thinking of it from an energetic perspective, or as you're talking astrologically, if we can just allow ourselves to feel where we're at when we're there
Mhm.
and not say, I shouldn't be here. Like, I shouldn't be so tired today. I shouldn't be doing this today. I should be doing that. But instead, actually saying, okay, so I am tired. My body's tired. Why? What is it trying to tell me? What am I resisting? Because it takes so much energy to resist change.
I feel like you're speaking to me again. Have you felt like that? Because I really have, where I
Yeah.
don't understand
Yeah.
why I'm just a little dissociated or a little more tired or lethargic.
Yeah.
And I do know the answer because I put things there's things like boiling under the surface, I think, for a lot of us that
Yeah.
we haven't fully wanted to look at. And we
Yeah.
need to look at it and then we can move forward. The faster we can move through that, the faster we're going to be able to like move on.
Well, we can ignore the change. We can ignore the signs, right? We can ignore the little whispers.
Right.
We can. But eventually, either we're going to listen and step into the change, or the universe is going to come in and say, fuck you.
Yeah.
Here you go. We're going to do it for you. Either do it or we'll do it for you. And you
Yes.
don't really want the universe to take control because sometimes they're not really nice about it.
Yeah.
It's like a 2x4 getting hit across the head, right? So
Right.
if you can, yeah,
And it's one of those things where later you can look back and in hindsight, you're like, oh, I see why that happened. That happened for a reason. It moved
mm-hmm.
me to this place. But we could make the transition in our lives a lot easier if we're like, okay, I do need to make this change. And you are right about that because, in some aspects of everyone's life, even if they're super mutable, I have things that I cling to, I guess, and I feel
Yeah,
like we talked about, like moving and selling house. I feel like, well, I put so much work in here, and this is almost like what you're expected to have. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And so
Yes.
for me to go from selling my house to living a little more like, or completely independent and not having a mortgage payment, but living in a tiny house, it's like, is that, I don't know if that's normal. I know it's a little more trendy right now. I'm supposed to have this house in this neighborhood, but I need to look at what aligns with my values, what I
Right.
value more. Is it independence and freedom?
Well,
Or
wait, it's that social expectation,
that's a perfect word. Yeah.
right? It's a social expectation. What will people think? If I do this, what will people think? And it's even harder because of social media, because it's like instantaneous feedback.
Mhm.
And we all want those thumbs up and hearts. Like we live for them, right? And it's like this expectation. And then it comes back to it's not just, before it was, oh, I don't want to disappoint my parents or, my siblings or my best friend or, though that was the original social expectation that we were living up to. Now it's millions of strangers.
Everyone will know. Yeah.
Everybody's going to know. Oh, and really that's where we're having to shift that perspective. It's not about the failure. It's about the fact that you had the courage to try.
Mm-hmm.
And then you listened a little bit closely and said, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is where my heart really wants me to go. This is where my soul feels the best.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a failure. It's just an acknowledgement.
Right. And
Yeah.
looking at like what really does light us up and what is valuable to us and whose opinions really matter, whose life
Right.
are we living for, like
Right.
if you don't have to like keep up to a certain standard to appease everyone else and who is
Right.
and
Yeah.
can actually live for you, what would you do? And I think that's a really good question to ask. Like if I had, no one's opinions playing a part and I could just do whatever I wanted to do because it felt right for me, what would I do?
Right.
So
Yeah. Well, and I think we need to normalize the idea that feeling fear doesn't mean that we're not ready for change, right? It just simply means we're human. Like it's okay that we're fearful of something. It doesn't mean we're not ready. It just means we're human, that we are, as humans, we're emotional beings. Like we're always, we learn through the emotion of it. And fear is just simply one of them.
right.
Right. And I think if we can start to say to ourselves, oh yeah, like, oh, it's okay that I'm afraid. It means I'm pushing my boundaries. It means I'm stepping outside of what is comfortable.
Exactly. And sometimes it's that thing that we haven't done, but that will give us the most joy.
Yeah.
If you think of your business and you've kind of played it safe, but you can step outside of the box, you could be completely new and innovative and creative, which is the energy that we're really moving into over the next 20 some years is that creative expression. You could be like groundbreaking and you never know how many people you're inspiring in your wake as well.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think that we're all at some aspect in our life. And I think that there are a lot of people having this with their business and not necessarily business owners right now, but people who aren't fulfilled in their 9 to 5 and that have an idea, have always had this dream and maybe feel like, well, now I'm too old or now, I don't have enough experience, whatever that is, but they've always wanted to do it. We're at this choice point. And again, it could be something that okay, now your company goes out of business and now what do you do? But you could have got
Right.
a start on it. But right now, things are changing. Like what's up is down, what's down is up. And our choices really have to be heart centered. I think we have to feel into it. Like what, don't logically
Yeah.
work it out. Logic isn't working right now. So
Yeah.
come with like what you're magnetized to. And I think that that's the answer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's really just allowing ourselves to just recognize
Mhm.
that change is inevitable. How we approach it is so important. And I think, like as we're talking about, you know, I think you were saying that Venus is in Aries. Is that what you said?
Yeah, just today.
Right? Where it's like we have to know where we've come from, right? So honor that. Just look back and say, okay, that's what I did.
Yeah.
but that's not what I'm doing now, and it's okay. But because of that, I'm able to do what I am doing now.
Mhm. And I'm
And I
going,
don't need to go back there. I can just take what I learned from it and apply it and just kind of know that I just trust the process.
right, and do
Yeah.
something that's uniquely you and be courageous. I'm going to take off my glasses for a second.
Yeah.
I've got this bloody eye today, so I didn't wear eye makeup. I didn't want to get it worse, but maybe the glasses need to go back on. I just saw the glare on them. Never mind.
Oh.
Um, and now I got myself distracted. So an example, like I felt like, I'm doing what I need to do with my business online, and I'm generating people through the mediumship, which I'm still like intro offer. So I'm not generating a lot of income, but I am getting a lot of interest, and then building connections with people. I had someone schedule a follow-up appointment with me. So
Oh, good.
that's been good, and that's nice. And then I've booked some events that I go to, but I'm still not seeing like the traction that I had hoped to manifest at this point. But I also know that it's not fully me to just be behind a computer all day. Like
Right.
I like the in-person interactions, that I'm like that. I like the flexibility of this and I enjoy it. And you can definitely still get a full experience, but I also enjoy being around people. So I made the bold decision to to lease out a space in like a collective building with different, healing practitioners, so that I can have in-person clients like come in.
Nice.
I can like more fully integrate the Reiki into it instead of just doing virtual, and then kind of have that, I don't know, that little collective, that little community
Yeah.
in there, which
Well,
I
it's
think,
the human connection, right? Like
yeah,
we crave the human connection.
right.
Like this is great, like over Zoom, it fills a void, but
Mhm.
it doesn't replace that basic human need of having the connection.
Yeah.
And so I'm really proud of you because that's a huge step. And it's something interesting. I have likely for the last 4 or 5 years gone back and forth. Do I rent a place? Do I not? Do I get a space? Do I not? And there's never been a space that's called to me strong enough.
Oh my God, we could be neighbors there.
Ooh, yeah.
We'd be on
Right.
our own side of the building.
Yeah.
And we'd have a little sauna and a little red light therapy, and then it could be you and me. How perfect
Oh,
would that be?
that would be like a
Really
happy little spot.
work besties.
Yeah. Right. So I mean, but that's the thing, like that's the craving, right? Like we want community. And if in online community is great. And I'm not going to knock it because, obviously with the women's business resource community, it's all about community and it's online and it's virtual. But the in-person thing that's the heart connection. Like that's where we really thrive as humans. Because if we didn't need that in-person connection, then our physical bodies wouldn't serve a purpose.
Right. It's true.
Yeah.
And as we evolve with technology, and this becomes the replacement
Yeah.
for human interaction. I mean, I don't watch regular TV, but I watch a lot of YouTube. And the types of YouTube channels that I love are like conversations like this, that I can feel somehow connected. I can't watch many things
Right.
that are like people are acting.
Right.
So
Yep.
I don't know. I think that it'll be really good for me. I like having like diversity in my day too.
Yeah. Well, and you're still in control. You still have that flexibility of time,
Right.
right? Like it's not like you have to show up at a certain time and then leave at a certain time. Like you still have that flexibility to however you schedule your clients and the sessions.
Yeah. So you can still
And
be an individual within a collective.
yeah,
I think that right now we have those choices to make, like whether you're an artist or a creator, or you have, whatever it is, service.
yeah.
There's something that you're like, do you have anything that you can think of that maybe you were like, okay, maybe this isn't what I want, but maybe this is, like something kind of shifting? I think it's happening in many aspects of our life, just not business or not
Yeah.
just business, but I know you have made a lot of changes just recently too with how you show up, and you're always involved in so many different projects. And
Yeah, it's again like community, right? So starting to work with which is exciting for mid-Michigan and really kind of the Tri-City areas, right? So a new pro basketball team is coming to Saginaw.
Mhm.
And Saginaw. So I'm working with their owners to kind of develop the business structure and the business side. And so just watching them kind of hold that level of heart-centered value. And one, it's a female owner of a men's pro basketball team.
Which is something that you value, women.
Yeah. And just seeing where the culture pieces are, right? Because there's two very distinct cultures happening.
Mhm.
And, what is that bridge? And so kind of really bridging that. And so, one of the things, speaking with her this morning, there was like this sense of fear, right? And it was based on an action that had happened. And so I was like, okay, so we have to look at the fear not as something to be afraid of, but almost like, it's a shift of energy.
Mhm.
So it's not just a warning sign, right? And I think people interpret that fear as, oh, I'm not supposed to do this.
Right.
Oh, no, this isn't right. This isn't okay. Well, that's fine. There's a level of fear, but where's the energy need to shift?
Mhm.
How can you shift what you're looking at? So then also you're going, oh, this is an actual opportunity that I don't need to be afraid of.
Yeah. And it's so much in our mind, right?
Yeah.
It's our perception.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
what is the
So,
like when you
because
change?
fear is a source is like a sense of protection, right? It's a protector. It's like this emotional layer, emotional shield.
And it's our survival brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about those books that we discussed.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's a book by, I gotta look at my notes, Jamie Kern. I read it, Jamie Kern Lima. She
Yeah.
wrote it, and I remember her from the first episode of Big Brother, if anyone's old enough to remember that.
I watched it, but I don't remember it.
It's she ended up owning It Cosmetics. And I think
Mm,
she sold that for a lot of money. So very successful entrepreneur. And she
yeah.
wrote this book. It came out maybe last year. And I read it so quick. It was so good. And she talks about the difference between self-confidence and
Mhm.
self-worth.
Yeah.
So she says like confidence, like you can build up your confidence if you're a really good athlete. Then let's say you have a knee injury and now you have to recover and now you're getting back into that. Well, you don't have the confidence that you had as that athlete, but it's your sense of worth that determines if you're like, I'll be okay either way. Or
Right.
if you have a really high paying job and so you're really confident in that position or you're confident with your financial status. And then that company goes under. And like you're not confident anymore in a new position, or maybe you're not confident anymore with your financial situation, but you don't feel completely worthless because at the very core of it, you know that your worth isn't dependent on how much you make, what your job title is, your body, your athletic ability, whatever it is. So confidence
Right.
can kind of come and go. Like it's the ebb and flow because sometimes we're in situations we're not really familiar with. We're beginners or whatever, or some
Yeah.
outside event kind of changes. But then our worth is something that's like, no matter what, I know that I am a good person.
Yeah.
I know that, whatever it is, like I know that I can be happy or be fulfilled at whatever level I'm at. And I
Yeah.
thought that was such an interesting thing and such a like a powerful thing to look at.
Well, I loved how she put it. I think she said, I don't know her exact verbiage, I can't remember, but I liked what she said when she referenced self-worth is like the foundation of your house.
Oh yeah. I don't
And
remember
then
that.
your confidence and everything else is the framework and everything that stands on top of your worth. So if your worth is weak, then everything else is weak.
Right.
So just because you're working on your self-confidence or your self-doubt or that imposter syndrome, if you haven't addressed your worth, then none of that will hold water.
That
And
makes
I'm paraphrasing all that, but that's basically, when you extract it and extrapolate it all down, she's saying your worth is the foundation that all else in your life will rest on and be built upon.
And I don't remember that part, but I like that because you can have confidence in a lot of different areas. But yeah, it wouldn't hold if at the root of it you don't feel like a worthy person.
Right.
And I think
Yeah.
it's something to look at, like when we're
Okay. So now that I say that, I may have interpreted it that way. I think she said something along the lines of, and this is where I can't remember the exact verbiage, but something about you will only be as successful as the amount of your self-worth.
that makes and
Like
that sounds
something like that. And so I think I kind of took that and I kind of took that as, and I reframed it so I could better understand it as,
yeah.
because she's basically saying like your self-worth is this value. And if you can't improve it, then everything else will not exceed
Well,
in
maybe
itself.
we should write a book because if she didn't say it, then that's gold right there.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And I see that. I can reflect on that within myself,
yeah.
for doing new things or trying new things. And I can't remember how she said like you can build that, but I guess for me and what I'm reflecting on is that sometimes we make such small incremental changes that we don't see all these success points that we've
Right.
like built for ourselves. We only look at like how far we have to go or what we haven't accomplished. And
Yeah.
I try to do that. And I think that's why like gratitude journaling is such a great practice. But I think that we forget those things. Like if I look back to a year ago and where I was, and even 6 months ago, I wouldn't have felt worthy enough to have a space where my name's on the door and people can come see me.
Right.
I don't think that I would have. And if you would have told me this a year and a half ago, I would be like, what? And now I'm like, this is a natural next step. So when you
Right.
look back at all those milestones, thank you, Karen, very much. And you're like, okay, I'm really proud of myself. So I think for me, it's been like having to validate myself
Yeah.
and like pat myself on the back. And you and I have had those conversations where
Yeah.
nothing external needs to say like good job and give you accolades. It's like, okay,
Right.
I made these steps and I've improved myself to get to this point.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
and and I think for a lot of people, when they look at, um, change, right, and having to kind of make those decisions or even seeing themselves doing something bigger or bolder than they might be ready for now, it's when shit happens, because it does happen, we have to remember we're not really starting over.
Mhm.
We're starting from a place of wisdom and from depth because we're bringing with us that experience.
Yes, no matter what we're doing, right?
Right. So now you having a space,
Mhm.
now you're bringing that wisdom, right? Because you do have that business wisdom behind you, right? That involved buildings and spaces, right?
Huge
So
where
you can bring that, whether you realize it or not, to the decisions you're making now.
yeah,
Even though it looks completely like two different things, there's still a fundamental thread of commonality for you.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Um, the other book, this Denise Lynn is one of my all-time favorite people, spiritual teachers, authors, and female entrepreneurs. But this book just came out. I had it on pre-order, and she wrote, it's The Gift of Low Self-Esteem, and it's so good. And I
Oh,
have to read a little part because she has a
okay.
little section called "Fuck It."
Yep.
And it says, when you don't feel good enough, say to yourself, fuck it. The truth is, I don't feel good enough. So what? It is what it is. And I thought that was so good because I think so many times we try to like push against or resist or, talk ourselves out of things or hide if we don't feel good enough or if we
Yeah.
don't feel secure enough or we feel like we messed up or we're not, whatever it is. But if you just own it and then you're like, okay, and I'm going to go for it anyways.
Yeah, take the leap, right? And it's not like you have to burn everything to the ground to take the leap either, right? It's you just have to acknowledge going, oh, there's risk. I'm
Mhm.
willing to take the risk,
Mhm.
right? And even like from a parenting perspective, I would say to my kids, you're gonna have choices to make. And there's gonna be a risk no matter what. You're either gonna take the safe route and not have the experience and it's low risk, or you're going to take maybe not such a safe route with really high risk, but have the experience. In the end, you just have to be okay with the fact that you'll be okay. And whatever the result is, and I don't always like to use consequences, right? But what the outcomes are, good, bad, or indifferent, at least then you can say, well, I made a decision to take the risk because I thought it was going to be worth it.
And then they know, was
And
it
then they
worth it?
know.
Was it
Right?
in?
So it's about how do we address that fear, right? Because fear can hold us back. And like, I don't want my kids to live in fear. I want them to be able to feel confident to take risks.
Yeah.
And not all of them are going to work out,
And
right?
then, right, they're not, but how do we know otherwise? And then you have the confidence to say, like, I did this, I tried this, and
Yeah.
rejection is just redirection. So
Yeah.
there can be reasons for that. It's not that you weren't good enough or other people can do it and not me.
Yeah.
Like either there's another route to get there, or maybe we didn't want it enough, or maybe the so-called failure just led us in another direction where we
Yeah.
on like the perfect opportunity or the right person.
Yeah. I know. I always took solace, and my dad would always say, because I would go to my dad with everything, right? And he was always like, what's the worst case scenario? You come home. And it was like I was leaving everything in London, Ontario to move out to BC. So I was quitting my job, whatever could pack in my little car to drive all the way across the country to sleep on somebody's couch who I barely knew with no job, no income or anything. And my dad was like, what's the worst case? You come home.
Nice.
Right. And you're like, okay. So I take the really big risk hoping for the best, but knowing the worst case scenario is I come back home.
Right.
Right. So, and the same when I left corporate, right? I didn't have a job, I didn't have anything. And I was like, I morally and ethically, I was at a crossroads. So I'm like, okay. And my dad's like, what's your worst case? And I'm like, I come sleep on your couch. And he goes, that's the worst case.
And it's nice that you had that support.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really important for people. But if you don't have it, like I don't have it,
Yeah.
um, like if you just know, okay, and you can play that game, like
Right.
what's the worst case?
Yeah.
Well, if this doesn't work out, then what will happen?
Right. You can come sleep at my house.
I have a support person,
Right.
my Canadian support.
And you know what, ironically, so this kind of circles right back to, the woman I was talking about with the basketball team. 7 years ago, she was in that position as a single parent, and she stayed here with us. And I barely knew her, but it was like, you need a place to stay for 1 week. I got a spare room, not being used.
Thanks.
Come stay,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what community means. It's not about judgment. And now, like we laugh because she's like, I didn't have, owning a basketball team on my bingo card. And I'm like, I didn't have it on your bingo card either.
And look at those changes that got her to that place.
Right.
I mean, that's huge. I mean, I don't know the whole situation, but going from like, oh, I need a place to stay to I own a basketball team is pretty impressive. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So that's the thing, right? It's, coming home. if that's your worst case scenario, home is anywhere that you lay your head.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a place that you own, or even with family or friends, you know? So
I've had that experience before, and it ended up being the best experience of my life. I had to get out of a situation quickly,
yeah,
and I had family that lived close. It was my cousin, and him and his girlfriend. He said, "You could come live here," and I ended up staying longer than I expected. And it's some of the best memories I've had. I had so much fun.
yeah,
So, and I didn't expect it at the time because I had given up my house and all these things to move for a relationship that, a couple of years later didn't
yeah,
work, but it all taught me something. And if
right,
we look at our road and where it takes us,
yeah,
and I think that there's so many people right now just feeling this need for more independence and more autonomy
yeah,
and to really live what they love. And why not? And this
yeah,
is maybe morbid, maybe this is a different topic, but sometimes I will look at, like, at the end of my life, I've even written my obituary or my eulogy.
yeah,
Not that what is said about me, like, not that I care so much about like what people think, but what would I want said about my life? So it's like
right,
reflecting back at my life at the end of my life, not she played it safe and she stayed in this job, or, you know,
yeah.
I
She
didn't
didn't
want,
do what society told her to do.
yeah,
Yeah,
like she followed her heart and did this stuff. And we don't know where it's going to take us. And a lot of time, I mean, and that's what I do with my practice too, is aligning people with their soul purpose, which is so validating when you're like,
yeah,
oh, my chart, my birth chart, my soul contract tells me that I can do this thing, gives me permission. It's so empowering.
right. Because sometimes we can't give ourselves permission as much as we want to.
That's been one of my biggest struggles in life. Yeah.
Yeah. So now with what the tools you have available and what you're able to share with people, it's they're giving themselves permission based on information, not necessarily just on that internal trust.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
what I find most of the time. It validates what people have been feeling, even though it's scary, because where our soul wants us to go, and it isn't necessarily with work, but it has to do with our life purpose, is
Yeah.
somewhere that we've never been. So that's why we want to experience it. Even though we've always kind of like, felt this need, there's like, oh, that's scary because we're not used to it. So we shrink back into our comfort zone, like how you said,
Yeah.
I'm afraid to make that change because that change is the unknown. And usually that's what fear is. It's just fear of the unknown.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Trust.
so a quick exercise that people might want to consider doing when they're thinking, especially about change and not sure what they're, you know, what energy is happening for them, right? Like they're feeling kind of all those things that we've been talking about is, just pay attention, like make a mental note or do a mental walk through your week, right? Where are you really highly energetic? Where are you most depleted, right? What's happening, or where are you when you get energetic and energized? Are you outside? Are you inside? What are you doing? Like what are you doing when it falls flat? So kind of take notice how your energy is shifting throughout the week and what you're doing and where you're doing it, and start to see what is the pattern,
And the
and
people
then
around you
more
too.
information, right?
I love,
Yeah,
because I've been doing, what gives me energy is interactions,
yeah,
other people, like bouncing ideas. Like this amps me up.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
but we all have our own thing, or even, with our creative work, like
right.
where do you lose time? What, what feels right?
So okay, so quickly, are you gonna pull cards?
Oh yeah, I have to.
Okay. So last week, were we talking about the retreat last week?
Yeah.
Okay. So talking about energy, where we spend our time, and it's like time stands still. I literally did a deep dive last week on a retreat for us.
So excited.
Yeah. So anybody tuning in, like just wait a couple of weeks and we should have more information. But Heather, I haven't even told you, but yeah, like I've got the name. mood board.
So excited.
The 4 days laid out. Day 1, people coming in and arriving. Day 4, people are leaving, and what's going on between.
This
I'm
gives
like, I
me
did
so
it.
much energy. My energy is being up.
So I'm like, okay, yeah, and I actually, my VA, she works with travel advisors, so I was pitching it to her, to just say, hey, as a woman business owner, like this is kind of like a 4-day retreat that I'm gonna talk to my co-host about. And she goes, oh my God, I love it. And she goes, and I have the perfect travel advisor to support you guys, to be your travel point person, to have anybody who wants to register and come to the retreat to be able, she'll coordinate all that with them for us.
Oh, that's so good.
And I was like, seriously? She goes, yeah, that's her niche, is like women's retreats.
That's so exciting.
And I was like, it's a sign.
It's such a sign. These things are all lining up. I
Yeah.
see it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we'll have to meet for, I don't know what your days are like this rest of the week, but we'll have to meet in person at our go-to place and chat it up.
So
But
I
yeah.
think for everyone right now to think about, where are you giving yourself permission to shine? Stop shrinking back. I'm sure there's men watching, but a lot of times women have been taught to stay small and not be too much. Young boys are encouraged to, oh, he's a go-getter. And for females, a lot of times it was like, you don't want to brag, or you don't want, you're being dramatic, whatever it is. But no, like what's valuable to you, and where do you want to shine? Where do you feel good? And if you didn't need anyone to give you permission, what would you do? And what value? To really think about those things, that what in your life would change if you didn't have to prove your worth to anyone else. And I think that when we stand in that place of, I'm worthy just the way that I am, I don't need more. More, right? I could go on, because sometimes, yes, like we need more education to do certain things, whatever. But there comes a point where, like, I'm just fine how I am, and to be transparent with it, like certain things that I'm doing that I might not be the most experienced. I'm like, I don't have to pretend to be, 45-year-old. I don't know why I said my age, but like someone who's been doing mediumship for all these years and doing, damn it. But, like, it's like, oh, this is kind of new, but, and I'm going to charge in relation to that. But I've had, so, but then there's things that's like, don't sell yourself short either.
Right.
And don't be don't be afraid, because life is getting real interesting right now. It's changing so much. Everything's a little strange. It could feel a little scary. On the other side of this, there's something really exciting. And the more that we honor our true self and put ourselves in the frequency of people that support that energy and that new life that we're building, the better it will be. It's a beautiful thing.
I think we need to be curious instead of fearful.
Ooh, curious. Right? Yeah.
So and I think that's part of the key, right? The key of being curious, so we don't panic. Because if we, and people are like, oh, curiosity killed the cat. Well, death is transformation. So we're transforming, right? Change is a transformation. So be curious about the transformation that's coming instead of afraid of it, right? Because we know, yes, life can change overnight. We know that, things can happen and it completely takes us sideways. We get it. But when we know change is coming, we don't, with the curiosity, we're not panicking, and we're not going to blow our life up over it, right? And we're not expected to have the answers right away. Right. So just stay curious, just kind of be open to listening and reflecting, and then just ask questions. Keep being curious. Be that cat
Yeah,
it's okay because the transformation is going to be a beautiful thing.
it is. We're in it. All right, should I pull this?
Yeah.
Let's see. Reconsider your commitments. Have you piled so much on your plate that there's little room for you? Identify what truly matters and graciously decline the rest. There's a universe of meaningful opportunities on the other side of no. In fact, every no makes space for the perfect yes. Your freedom is closer than you think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's part of honoring our worth, is understanding that no is a complete sentence. And sometimes we can spread ourselves too thin. Sometimes we can say yes to things that we really want to say no to. But when we honor
Right.
what feels good to us and what lights us up and what amps up our energy, and when we stay on track with, in alignment with our goals, like
Yes.
we don't have to say yes to everything. And it doesn't matter who those people are in your life, kind of look at who's supporting you, because those people will understand.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I mean, and that's the thing, like we normally don't schedule change and shifts. It just happens. So yeah. So it's that flexibility for sure.
I feel like I'm doing a Popeyes commercial.
That's okay if Popeyes wants to sponsor.
Yeah, right. We'll take that. I feel bad for myself today.
Yeah.
Huge pop
Uh,
for my eye.
yeah.
Not my life. I felt worthy of a Coke.
Yes. Hey, there you go.
All right. Well, we will be back next week. We have some fun things that we'll talk about with the Scorpio full moon.